more than 200 years, one of the world's most fascinating countries deliberately shut itself off from the outside world. Foreigners were turned away. Japanese citizens were forbidden from leaving. Trade was reduced to a tiny trickle. An entire nation chose isolation. Isolation caused isolation. Yet today, Japan is one of the world's leading economic and technological powers. Its companies transformed global industries. Its innovations reshaped modern life. And its culture has influenced millions of people around the world. So how did a country that isolated itself for centuries become one of the most advanced nations on Earth? The answer begins long before Japan existed as a single nation. Thousands of years ago, the islands of Japan were home to scattered communities separated by mountains, forests, and the sea. Over generations, migrants from mainland Asia introduced new farming techniques, metal tools, and new ways of organizing society. Small villages became permanent settlements. Settlements grew into competing kingdoms. And by the 3rd century AD, one kingdom was beginning to stand above the rest. It was known as Yamato. From its base in central Japan, Yamato's rulers gradually extended their influence across much of the archipelago, laying the foundations of what would become the world's oldest continuing imperial dynasty. But Japan's future wouldn't be shaped by conquest alone. Across the sea, far more powerful civilizations had already flourished for centuries. China, and Korea. From them came ideas that would transform Japan forever. In 502 AD, Buddhism arrived from the Korean peninsula. It brought more than a new religion. It introduced new philosophies, new artistic traditions, and new ways of understanding government and society. A century later, inspired by China's powerful imperial system, Japanese rulers began reshaping their own government. Authority became more centralized. The imperial court grew stronger. And for the first time, Japan began to resemble a unified state. For centuries, each new emperor established a new capital. Then, in 1794, Emperor Kangmu made a decision that changed Japanese history. He founded a permanent capital called Heian-kyo, modern-day Kyoto. For nearly 400 years, it became the center of Japanese politics, culture, and refinement. Poets composed masterpieces. Artists developed new styles that remain iconic today. Court ceremonies became increasingly elaborate. Noble families competed through elegance, learning, and influence rather than warfare. It was one of the greatest cultural golden ages in Japanese history. But beneath the beauty prize, the foundations of imperial power were beginning to crack. While the court devoted itself to ceremony, poetry, and politics, life beyond the capital was changing. Provincial landowners grew richer. Regional governors became increasingly independent. Powerful families raised private armies to defend their lands. The farther a province lay from the capital, the less control the emperor truly exercised. Japan wasn't collapsing. It was transforming. Real authority was quietly shifting away from the imperial court and into the hands of regional military leaders. Out of that transformation emerged a new class of warrior, the samurai. The samurai Karch-T, bound by discipline, military skill, and unwavering loyalty, they served powerful noble families whose influence grew with every passing generation. Soon, two great clans stood above all the others, the Terra and the Minamoto. Their struggle for power would plunge Japan into a civil war that would redefine the nation. The emperor would continue to rule in name. But after this conflict, real power would belong to the sword. The emperor remained Japan's highest authority. But increasingly, he ruled in name rather than in practice. Real power had begun moving away from the imperial court and into the hands of regional warrior clans. Among them, two families stood above all the others, the Terra and the Minamoto. Their rivalry wasn't simply a struggle between two powerful clans. It was a battle over who would control the future of Japan. Years of political disputes eventually erupted into open warfare. Beginning in 1180, the Jinpei War engulfed much of the country. For 5 years, samurai armies fought across Japan, each victory bringing one side closer to complete domination. When the conflict finally ended in 1185, the Minamoto clan had emerged victorious. But winning the war created an entirely new question. Who would govern Japan now? The emperor still occupied the throne in Kyoto, yet it was Minamoto, no Yoritomo, who commanded the loyalty of the warriors. Rather than overthrow the emperor, Yoritomo chose a different path. In 1192, he accepted the title of Shogun, Great General, and established a military government in Kamakura, hundreds of kilometers from the imperial court. For the first time in Japanese history, political and military power were separated. The emperor remained the symbolic ruler of Japan. The shogun became the man who actually governed it. That decision reshaped Japanese history. Power had moved once again, not from one emperor to another, but from the court to the sword. For generations, the samurai became the backbone of this new system. Their loyalty was rewarded with land and influence. Their duty was to preserve order, and their reputation as disciplined warriors became legendary. But the new government would soon face a challenge, unlike anything Japan had ever encountered. Came from the largest land empire the world had ever seen, the Mongol Empire. By the late 13th century, Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan, ruled an empire stretching across much of Asia. After conquering China, he demanded that Japan submit to Mongol authority. Japan refused, which word, to pren and many fid. War became inevitable. In 1274, thousands of Mongol soldiers crossed the sea and landed on the island of Kyushu. Although heavily outnumbered, Japanese samurai resisted fiercely along the coastline. Then, just as the invasion gathered momentum, nature intervened. A violent typhoon tore through the Mongol fleet, destroying countless ships and forcing the invaders to retreat. 7 years later, the Mongols returned. This time, with an even larger invasion force. Surely Japan couldn't survive twice. Yet history repeated itself. Another massive storm struck the invading fleet, scattering ships across the sea and devastating the Mongol armada before it could secure victory. The Japanese called these miraculous storms kamikaze, the divine wind. Japan had defeated the greatest empire on earth, but victory came at a price. The invasions had drained the shogunate's treasury. The samurai expected rewards for defending the country. There was little money left to give them. Once again, the balance of power inside Japan was beginning to shift.